Do you know what time it is? It's supernatural story time. And if you're easily scared, and even if you're not, there's only one thing left to do. Just turn off the lights, because these are stories that you listen to only in the dark. It Follows Me. Volume 2, Story Number 1. We all knew the rule. Never take the boat out once the sun dipped below the western horizon. But the cooler brimmed with beer, and it didn't take much to talk Jared and me into breaking it. Neither of us knew what that stupid decision would cost us. You don't understand how precious time is until you hear something trying to force its way through a locked door. But let me start from the beginning. "Hey Joe," Jared called out. "Something's floating out there. Swing the spotlight to port." He leaned out over the side of the speedboat, the small scout craft the rig used for its site surveys, the very reason we weren't supposed to touch it after sundown. I set my beer in the cup holder, cut our speed, and aimed the spotlight where he pointed. The ocean lay flat and black as glass under a clear night sky. Then I saw it. A small container, blinking red, about the size of a cinder block. Jared dug up a fishing net and leaned out to hook it as we drifted past. With a grunt, he hauled it onto the deck. I crossed over to get a better look. Stenciled on the side in bold white letters were the words, "Flight Recorder, do not open." Beneath that ran a line of symbols I didn't recognize, more like hieroglyphs than any alphabet I knew. At the very bottom, someone had printed a phone number. Jared read my mind before I said a word. "You think there's a reward?" We both understood without saying so that this thing was worth something. We addled back to the rig and docked as quietly as we could. But the moment we stepped onto the platform, Swan was already waiting there. He opened his mouth to tear into us, then saw the box in Jared's hand and shut it again. "Is that a plains black box?" he asked. "You mean orange box?" I said, immediately regretting it. Swan raised an eyebrow. "They're all orange. The name's just figurative." Jared cut to the point. "Do you think there's a reward for it? We could call the number." We batted the idea around until we decided to wake Pershing, the ex-Navy man on our crew. He didn't talk much, but everyone suspected he'd seen things the rest of us hadn't. Swan and I left Jared with the box and slipped into the crew quarters, weaving between bunks until we reached Pershing. He was snoring, until without warning his eyes snapped open and his fist shot up, ready to swing. Recognition crossed his face just in time, and he lowered it. "What's the problem?" he growled. Not a happy man to wake up. I found myself wondering if the rumors about him and the special forces were true after all. "We need to show you something," Swan whispered. Jared brought the box down to the storage room, and the four of us crowded around the table where it sat, humming faintly with its secrets. The sharp smell of cleaning solvent hung in the air. Pershing studied the symbols etched into the casing. I watched his expression shift, curiosity curdling into something closer to dread. His hand trembled as he set the box back down. "Where did you find this?" "Pershing, this is worth something, right?" Jared grinned. "We just pulled a winning lottery ticket out of the ocean." "It was floating about half a mile off the rig," I added, though something in my gut already told me that detail wouldn't matter. What Pershing said next caught us all off guard. "Take it back out. Throw it in the sea. And pray to God they can't trace it here." "Who?" Swan asked. He understood better than either of us that this was no prize. Jared went quiet, fidgeting, the surest sign he was holding something back. My eyes locked into his. "Let's get the speedboat ready. We're taking it back out." Jared's jaw tightened. "I already called the number. It's printed there for a reason. We're owed something for finding it." "What did they say?" Swan asked. Jared shrugged. "They're on their way." Swan and I exchanged a look neither of us wanted to admit was fear. Pershing's face had gone the color of a man who'd just stepped on a landmine. Without another word, he turned and walked out. Swan murmured, "Maybe it'll work out, but I've got a bad feeling about this." We left the box in the storage room and scattered to our bunks. I fell asleep almost instantly. It felt like only seconds later when sirens tore through the dark, jolting the whole room awake. Men scrambled out of their bunks. "What the hell's going on? Fire? Pirates?" Bodies collided in the dark. as everyone tried to dress and stay calm at the same time. Then the lights cut out entirely, replaced by the dull red glow of the backup system. I just finished lacing up my boots when the gunfire started. Muffled, controlled burst, automatic weapons suppressed. Everyone in the room froze at the sound rolling down from the deck above us. The gunfire cracked again, and that was when we ran. I squeezed through an exit and felt something whip past my ear. A burn, then numbness, then the warm slide of blood down my neck. Part of my earlobe was gone. Someone shouted my name. I spun around just in time to see a dark bloom spread across Swan's throat before he crumpled to the floor. I looked back once toward the crew quarters and saw them. Figures in black wetsuits, ballistic masks hiding their faces, decked out in gear too advanced for anything I'd ever seen on a rig. Night vision goggles, tactical vests, suppressed rifles. They paused to fire and men still crawling across the deck. These weren't pirates. The next hour dissolved into chaos. I ran through narrow corridors, gunfire never more than a few rooms away. Half an hour in, even the emergency lighting failed. I ducked behind a supply cabinet outside the medical bay and pulled out a flashlight, then thought better of it. Using it would only paint a target on me. Then I heard voices, closer and getting closer. Someone had caught the flicker of my light. American voices. I pressed myself flat against the wall and waited. The footsteps faded down the hall. Why were our own people doing this to us? I crept through the dark toward the communications room, chasing the only plan I had left. Get a signal out. Get someone to know what happened here, even if I didn't survive it. Someone wanted this kept quiet, and they were willing to kill everyone on the rig to keep it that way. The comms room door was steel, and it was locked. Somewhere behind me, a gunshot cracked, followed by a scream. Would they circle back to hunt for survivors? The comms room was my last hope, so I did the only thing I could think to do. I knocked. Something knocked back. I tapped out Morse code again. It's the door. It's Joe, in danger. Hall clear, open the door, help. I knocked it again, then held my breath. The locks clicked, and the door swung open. Hands hauled me into the dark, and the door slammed shut behind me. I let out a breath I didn't know I was holding when I recognized Jared's voice. I thought you were dead. Have you gotten anyone on the line? They're jamming us. What about satellite? Joe, I don't think help's coming fast enough. I know. His voice turned bitter. I wish to God we'd never pulled that thing out of the water. He swung his flashlight toward the corner where the orange flight recorder sat, unassuming, as if it hadn't just gotten half our crew killed. Why'd you even bring it in here with you? I thought, if things went bad enough, I could bargain with it. Trade it for our lives. These guys only negotiate with a bullet, Jared. When I called that number, I never thought whatever's on this thing was worth killing this many people over. Then the door handle clicked. Someone was trying to get in. Jared had been right about the jamming, but every so often the satellite signal flickered through for half a second before dying again. I kept firing off distress calls on every frequency I could find, over and over, praying one of them would stick. 30 minutes crawled by while someone worked at the door. They never tried explosives, even they weren't reckless enough to set off a charge on an oil rig sitting on a live wellhead. My last transmission read, I have the box. If you breach this door, I detonate what's left of it. It was a bluff, but whoever was listening believed it because the scratching and prying against the door stopped cold. Silence stretched for what felt like hours. Jared and I sat back against the far wall, weapons we didn't know how to use gripped uselessly in our hands, listening for footsteps that never came. I remember thinking that silence on a rig full of dead men was its own kind of scream. Then, faint at first, a new sound cut through the quiet. A low rhythmic thudding, growing louder by the second. Rotor blades. Jared's head snapped up. Tell me that's not them again. I didn't answer. I couldn't. Through the small reinforced window of the comms room, a searchlight swept across the deck outside, and this one didn't move like the others had. Controlled, deliberate, sweeping in slow, methodical arcs. A voice crackled through on a frequency that hadn't been jammed in over an hour. This is U.S. Coast Guard cutter Resolute. We have received your distress signal. Rig personnel, if you can hear this, hold your position. We are inbound. Jared let out a laugh that came out half sob. I just stared at the little speaker, afraid that if I moved, I'd wake up and find none of it was real. The gunfire started again, but different this time. Further off, answered by return fire that wasn't ours. Whoever the black-clad men had been, they hadn't planned on anyone else showing up. Within minutes, the shooting dropped off entirely, replaced by shouted commands and the heavy thump of boots on metal decking that didn't belong to our crew. When the comms room door finally opened again, it wasn't a masked stranger on the other side. It was a Coast Guard boarding officer in full tactical gear, flashlight sweeping the room, landing on the two of us huddled in the corner. "Anyone else alive in here?" I could only shake my head. Jared managed to point weakly at the orange box still sitting untouched in the corner. The officer's eyes lingered on it a beat too long, the kind of look that told me he already knew exactly what it was, and that this hadn't been the first rig it had visited. They never told us who the men in black had been. They never told us what was actually recorded inside that box, or why a phone number stenciled on a black box led straight to a kill team instead of a rescue crew. When investigators finally debriefed us weeks later on dry land in a windowless room that felt uncomfortably like the one we'd almost died in, they asked more questions than they answered. All I know is this: the box never made it back to shore with us. Somewhere between the rig and the mainland, it disappeared from Coast Guard custody, and no report I've ever seen mention it existed at all. Jared still has the number memorized. Neither of us has ever dialed it again. Some nights, though, my phone rings from a blocked number, and no one on the other end says a word. I just listen to the silence and wonder if they're still out there waiting to see if we'll pick up. I didn't die on that rig, but some part of me never quite made it off either. Story number 2. The sky has never looked blacker, and the wind howls with something close to malice. A scarf covers my face, but the cold still bites at my cheeks. I bear it gladly, standing in line to board the ship that will finally take me off the rig. Then word spreads through the lines. The winds are too strong for a helicopter. Only a Navy vessel can reach us, and it has room for 7. I'm one of them. My name is Roy. I work alternating months on an oil rig in the North Sea. The pay is good, but boredom and isolation wear on you worse than the cold ever does. The only breaks in the monotony come from bursts of stress and the rare good day when the Wi-Fi actually works. About 200 men live on this rig. When the sun breaks through, morale lifts. But on the overcast days, when your fingers shake inside gloves worn thin by salt and grease, you start counting down to your next sleeve. Sometimes it isn't just cold. Sometimes it's rain too, driving sideways for hours. Roughly 20 or 25 of us rotate out to the mainland each month, and we see the same faces again when we returned. It's routine, except for one thing I've never gotten a straight answer about. 7 days before the end of each shift, 7 workers get pulled aside, told to pack and vanish that same night. The rest of us are told they've transferred to another rig. It happens every single month, without fail. I've never seen any of them again. Not on the rig, not on the mainland. Most were just acquaintances. One wasn't. His name was Fred. After he left, he stopped answering my calls. I told myself he'd probably switch to a better phone than the ones the company issues us. But something about the whole arrangement has never sat right with me. Today they selected me. The ship pulls alongside the rig, and I still can't understand why we're leaving in weather this bad, or why a Royal Navy destroyer is escorting us instead of a supply boat. None of the other 6 selected men know anything more than I do. Once aboard, they lead us through metal corridors to a conference room and gesture for us to sit. The engine rumbles beneath us, but the wind and waves grow louder still. 2 men step to the front of the room. I recognize one. He visits the rig from time to time, though I've never learned his name. The other man studies us in cold silence. His uniform is pressed, his tie crisp, and gold epaulets gleam on his shoulders. The first man hands out forms to each of us. The officer steps forward. My name is Captain Jeremy Insa. I command this destroyer. I can see the unspoken question on every face in the room. Why are oil rig workers being transported by a warship? Once you sign these forms, he says, you will be bound by the Official Secrets Act. This operation is entirely classified. You will not discuss any part of it, not with friends, and not with family. You are being activated on an ad hoc basis under a threat to life weather protocol. He scans each of our faces in turn. You've each been selected for your specialist knowledge, your time on the rig, and the results of your psychological assessment. You may refuse this assignment. If you do, you'll be escorted back. If you accept, you have 10 minutes to decide. There should be enough time to read the contract. The silence that follows feels solid enough to touch. If you accept, your pay for the next 5 days will increase 20-fold, equivalent to several months of standard wages. That everyone in the room understands. If anyone wishes to refuse, speak now. No one does. I think it over, and I know I'm not the only one wondering why they pay so much for 5 days of work. But beneath the caution, a small secret thrill runs through me at the thought of something unknown. Was it the money or the mystery that convinced the 6 men who came before us to stay? When no one stands to leave, the captain radios something in a low voice and the engines roar to life. We're underway. We read through the contract, some of us faster than others, then wander the conference room while we wait. A few men seem unbothered. Others carry a tinge of dread, and I suspect, like me, they're already wondering if they've made a mistake. My eyes meet those of the man who occasionally visits the rig. "I've seen you before," I say. He nods. "I move between rigs." "Where are we headed?" The others gather around, echoing the question. "Where's this rig located?" He answers carefully. "Even if I told you, the name wouldn't mean anything. It's not on any official chart. Officially, it doesn't exist." "Is it a military base?" "Not an oil rig, but the equipment is similar." "If it's not oil, why the secrecy?" His voice drops. "You don't need to know its true purpose. I don't fully know it myself. Take the money and go home when it's over. Do you understand me?" We mumble something like agreement. The ship pitches through the storm, carrying us toward a place that officially isn't there. We arrive close to dawn, the sky still dark, clouds scudding overhead with no stars to break them. We huddle on a rain-soaked platform belonging to an enormous rig, already alive with activity despite the hour. Men move in overalls and military fatigues. Soldiers patrol every level of the derrick, some with British flags stitched to their sleeves, others with Norwegian insignia. Searchlights sweep continuously across the bridges and platforms. The one thing missing is any sign of oil. No pipeline, no hose, no drill line. All the searchlights illuminate is a monstrous chain, each link the size of a car. It makes me feel impossibly small. My eyes trace it as it disappears below the platform down into the black water. What is it for? Someone slams into me from behind. I turn to find a man in a hard hat, his eyes bloodshot and ringed with dark circles. "You the takeover crew?" His voice comes out as a croak. "Yeah." A siren shrieks and all of us flinch, except him. He doesn't so much as blink. Soldiers start bellowing orders. I can't hear over the alarm. Purple and yellow floodlights wash over the platform. The whole structure begins to shake. Captain Insa appears out of nowhere, calling out our names and pointing us towards our stations. Everyone obeys. This isn't the moment for questions. Everything trembles. Waves slam against the rig hard enough to make me wonder just how large they must be to shake something this size. The sea churns below, furious. Then my eyes lock onto something that sends my pulse hammering in my ears. The captain is shouting my name, but I can't move. He grabs my shoulder, but terror has frozen me solid. Something is wrong with the great chain. It's unraveling, as if something below is pulling it down. There is no mistaking it now. The chain is shaking. The captain's face fills my vision and his words finally break through. "Roy, look at the gray cylinder behind you, right of the tower." My eyes swing in that direction. "I see it. The reservoir?" He gives me a smile I can't quite read. "Is there malice in it?" "That's your station. Report there, now." He tips his cap and strides back towards the ship. There's nothing left to do but follow orders. I splash across the platform, a hard hat shoved into my hands, and climb the nearest metal stairs. Soldiers sprint past me, chasing their own assignments. The railing is slick with rain. I've already lost sight of the 6 men who arrived with me. I cross the bridge toward the reservoir, letting past pipes and hydraulic tubing. Through the cage of the tower, one of the chain links suddenly jolts downward. I refuse to imagine what's causing that. About 8 men work the pumps and control valves nearby. One of them, goggles pushed up on his forehead, calls out, "Hydraulics?" "That's me." He points at a section of the cylinder. "Open it up. Check if it's working. Quick." Thunder cracks overhead. I move to where he pointed and dig through a toolbox for what I need to pull the covering off. Then I catch a flash of blue coat. One of the men from the ship approaches the goggled man. "Third siren tonight. Where's the fault? No major issues, hydraulics are clear. Then what's the problem? I don't want to hear another siren tonight. Both men walk off, and it's obvious what they're really discussing: the groaning chain. We work through the night as the rain thins to drizzle. The sea calms, the waves slow, and the siren finally stops. The chain gets hauled back up through the tower. I wait for my shift to end. It doesn't. A fault in one of the hydraulic system keeps us at it until dawn. When we're finally dismissed, I collapse into a narrow bunk and sleep like the dead. I wake to my bunkmates snoring around me. The clock reads noon. 5 hours of sleep, no more. A note taped beside it reads, Hydraulics Team B report at 1:30 p.m. I change, clean up, and decide to explore before orientation at 1:15. The weather has calmed, and the rig is busy but no longer frantic. I run into one of the 5 other men who crossed over with me, and he shows me where our belongings are stowed. It's easy to spot the men who've been here a long time. Their faces are lined, their eyes wary and shadowed. The soldiers, by contrast, are unreadable. I find a small library, its shelves crammed with battered books at crooked angles. A map of the North Sea hangs on one wall, along with a layout of the rig itself. Scratched into the metal beside the map, someone has carved a single word: Fred. Could this be my Fred? It's a common enough name, but the F carries a small hooked flourish at the end, exactly how he signed every report he ever filed. The thought that he might be here lifts something in my chest. But why carve his name into a wall? Following a hunch I still can't fully explain, I push one of the bookshelves aside. Behind it, more carvings. Numbers this time. 41-134. Not a date. Something else. Maybe a military designation. Beneath the numbers, a crude drawing. A square being devoured from below by a shape like jagged open mouth. Simple but unsettling. Next to it, in black capitals, Don't Trust Mutter. What or who is Mutter? I don't understand any of it, but I know it means something. Did Fred leave this for someone to find? From there, I make my way to the largest bridge, where I can see the surrounding sea. A few battleships roll on distant waves. 2 other rigs sit far off on the horizon. Nearby, a man eats a sandwich, eyes glazed. He nods at me and points towards the farthest rig with his sandwich. That's Norwegian. We call it no rig. Roy, I say, nice to meet you. He nods. Sam. I take the opening. Hey, Sam, what's the deal with the chain? He shrugs. Don't know much, except it moves with the storms. How long have you been out here? 10 days, second time. Second time. How long was your first shift? 5 days. They triple your pay every time you come back. Why the military presence? Who knows? But whatever's down there matters to them a lot. He watches 2 helicopters cross overhead. You know anyone named Mutter? He pauses and something shifts in his expression. No, but I only work the upper deck. The military police, though, everyone calls them the Mutters. He studies me a beat too long. You ask a lot of questions, Roy. You're not like the other guys they send out here. I laugh, awkward. He doesn't crack a smile. Guess they needed someone with your skill set, he says. I head to orientation, which turns out to be a dry rundown of the logistics and duties. No warm welcome here. They tell us we'll be debriefed in Norway once our service ends. But one line sticks with me. Whatever you hear, save it for the debrief. My shift runs 6 hours on, 6 off. Nights are the worst. Endless rain, endless well. I quickly learned that everyone dreads that siren. When it finally sounds, floodlights sweep the bridges, rails, and platforms, and the chain inside the derrick groans like something alive. It stops after 15 minutes. An hour later, it starts again. The tension never lets up, and I start to understand why they rotate men through so quickly. The ones who've been here longest are visibly breaking down. One night, the siren won't stop. The goggled man shouts, Have we lost it? The chain moves like something with a pulse, swinging until it slams into the side of the metal tower. The whole rig shudders. A distant boom rolls across the water. A warship firing into the sea. More ships move in, their lights sweeping the waves. Everyone stops to watch the display. This is my chance to find answers. I slip through the shadows and head down, moving with purpose, down the stairs and across the platform. 4 helicopters pass overhead, hauling a massive length of chain between them, out towards the warships. They release it and it vanishes beneath the surface. Using what I remember from the library's map, I make my way to the staff quarters. I find a door marked as leading nowhere, but behind it is a room after all. Dark, packed with filing cabinets and empty desks shoved into the corner. Every cabinet has a steel padlock. I think of the numbers Fred carved into the wall. 41-134. I work through the cabinets one by one. At the seventh, the lock springs open. Inside, files stuffed with more files, none in any order. Reports, most of them redacted. An order from 1976 demands the immediate halt of all drilling. Another assigns new personnel, but forbids keeping them on site for more than 2 weeks. One line jumps out at me. Entity's true name is classified at the highest level. Outside, the wind keeps howling, and the siren scrapes every nerve raw. I find a handwritten note, a quote attributed to Alfred Lord Tennyson, 1830. Below the thunders of the upper deep, far, far beneath, in the abysmal sea, his ancient, dreamless, uninvaded sleep. My fingers shake, and it isn't from the cold. I slam the file back into the cabinet, lock it, and hurry back through the corridors toward my station, already certain I've made a terrible mistake coming here. Lightning flashes, then I hear something new. A roar unlike anything I've heard before, rolling across the sea and sky. The edge of the massive chain wheel forces its way up against the far side of the rig from beneath, crushing a crane and tearing it free. The sound of shredding metal fills the air as it plunges into the churning sea. The chain grinds against the tower, punching through the side and swinging towards me, the enormous wheel dragging around the shattered edge of the platform. I scream because there's nothing else left to do. Someone grabs the back of my jacket and hauls me across the slick platform. The iron wheel tears along the rig's edge, smashing the loading bays and toppling the last cranes. The roof of the derrick collapses. I'm released and crumple to the ground, staring at the wreckage around me. When I look up, I realize my rescuer is a commander. "Get to your station! The night isn't over!" "What are we supposed to do?" I shout at him. Before he can answer, an officer runs up. "Catastrophic failure in the affected section. There's nothing left to save. It's gone." "Then we work with what we've got," the commander snaps. The battleships keep firing into the waves. The officer salutes and sprints off. The commander is still the only one with answers, so I press him. "What is this place? What are you hiding?" He studies me. "You're one of those, a questioner. You know where they need a questioner? On one of the submarines." I didn't think I could feel more dread. I was wrong. "No, I won't." "Get in that submarine, and I'll forget you abandoned your station, and that your hydraulic section failed catastrophically while you were gone." He drags me down to a lower platform on the far side of the rig, wrenches open a rusted hatch, and reveals a ladder descending into the sea below. My options have run out. Nowhere to run, and if the rig goes down, the submarine might be the safer bet. I climb down the rungs. The commander slams the hatch shut above me. The ladder ends over churning black water. A gray submarine has surfaced below, and a man in overalls holds the hatch open. "Hydraulics," he shouts up. I nod. "Jump!" "Jump?" He waves me down urgently. I climb to the last rung and push off, and somehow land square on the hull. He hauls me down into the vessel. "Barry," he says, extending a hand. "Roy." My hand shakes as I take it. The world shifts around me, and my ears pop with a change in pressure. Barry offers what comfort he can. "You're better off in here than up there, trust me. Word is they're losing the chain." I nod. He walks me to the exhaust valves, which aren't operating the way they should. The regular hydraulics man got pulled to another rig for maintenance. He points out the tools in the engine room, tells me where to find them, and leaves. I realize the smartest thing I can do is to bury myself in work, because if I let myself dwell on the last 3 hours, I'll lose my mind. Eventually, I make my way through the narrow corridors and find that unlike the chaos above, the submarine is quiet. I reach a central hub, dimly lit, its front wall a sweep of curved glass. Dark water slides past outside. 5 other men wait inside, one of them the captain. Barry's there too and offers a small smile. I can't tear my eyes from the glass. The men study me in silence before someone finally asks, "Were you briefed on the entity? Did you get a psychological assessment?" "No." No one says another word for a long moment. The captain barks, "Who the hell sent you down here? You shouldn't be on this boat." "I know," I fire back. Can someone just tell me what's going on? A chaplain among the group asks if I'm religious. If there's a passage from the Bible he could read me. I think of the numbers scratched into the library wall and recite that to him instead. Reluctantly he opens a Bible and reads from Job. Can you pull in Leviathan with a fishhook or tie down its tongue with a rope? Can you put a cord through its nose or pierce its jaw with a hook? Will it keep begging you for mercy? Will it speak to you with gentle words? Will it make an agreement with you for you to take it as your slave for life? Can you fill its hide with harpoons or its head with fishing spears? If you lay a hand on it, you will remember the struggle and never do so again. Any hope of subduing it is false. The mere sight of it is overpowering. The room's atmosphere grows thick enough to choke on, but he continues. None are fierce enough to rouse it. Who then is able to stand against me? Everything under heaven belongs to me. When it rises up, the mighty are terrified. They retreat before its thrashing. The sword that reaches it has no effect, nor does the spear or the dart or the javelin. Iron it treats like straw, and bronze like rotten wood. Nothing on earth is its equal, a creature with no fear inside. It looks down on all that are haughty. It is king over all who hold pride. Every face in the room carries the same distress. The submarine beams sweep across the length of the chain drifting past outside. I turn to the captain. Just tell me, what is the entity? Discovered by oil rigs back in '76. Truth is, we know almost nothing about it. We've never seen it whole. Sonar only gives us fragments. We believe it's asleep, though it never stops stirring. Its alertness shifts with the moon cycles and with the seasons. We use firepower to steer it and knit chains to keep it down. Every year it grows harder to hold. We're afraid it's waking up. Can you destroy it, I ask. It's not about the entity. It's about what it's sitting on. It's resting on something beyond our understanding. We think it's a gate. If we kill the creature, what if the gate opens? Maybe this thing isn't the threat. Maybe it's the guard. That's worse than anything I imagine. My stomach clenches. Everyone scrambles to their stations, and I feel the submarine shift course. Something else moves beyond the glass, not just a chain. The vessel fires torpedoes, and they connect. A flash of light reveals writhing limbs and tentacles, marked with strange lines and patterns. Another flash, and I see an eye in the dark. It looks at me. I look back. A membrane peels back to reveal a long rectangular pupil. Then everything goes black. I wake in the medical bay. The commander stands at the far end of the room and confirms we're back at the rig. 14 men died. They lost the destroyer. I can't shake the feeling that I'm somehow responsible. As though reading my thoughts, the commander says, "Do yourself a favor. Keep your head down. Go to the debrief in 3 days. Stop snooping around." He leaves without another word. For 2 days, I try to take his advice. The platforms get cleared, work resumes, and I go through the motions. But my mind keeps circling back to Fred's message on the library wall. I think about the locked files, about what might be waiting beyond the gate. I think about how they managed to stop the entity if it really did start to wake. More than anything, I think about that eye. Terrible, impossible, unforgettable. The night that follows brings storm after storm. On the 5th day, I finally catch a Wi-Fi signal. I email Fred, fully aware I'm breaking my contract by doing it. Then, I sign up for a deep drill crew heading down to the seabed to collect samples, a long shot at glimpsing the entity again. They turned me down at first, but then I learn a separate crew is heading out that same night. And they need volunteers. Questions come from every direction. I stay quiet. None of them answer what I actually want to know. Volunteers get to rest instead of pulling the regular shift. I sleep deeply, and for the first time in weeks, I remember a dream. It's Fred, exactly as I last saw him. He stares at me, sorrowful, and I want to reach out and shake his hand, but I can't move. His mouth never moves, yet I hear him as clearly as if he stood beside me. "Listen, Roy, just listen. Why do you think everyone left the sub's hub all at once, and left you behind? Why was there a chaplain?" My mind goes still, his words settling into me, until for once my thinking feels sharp and clear. "The glass," I whisper. It's for looking in, not out. He nods. Remember the etching? Something coming up from below to devour? I nod too. In an instant, I understand. I was sent into that submarine for work that wasn't remotely urgent. I was meant to be seen. None of the crew wanted that creature to look at them. The strange pull I'd felt, the compulsion to see that eye again, to know the truth. Makes sense now. It was a siren's call, and I'd nearly answered it. You're a questioner. Do not get on that deep drill sub. Those are his last words before he fades. I surface slowly from sleep, and my mind drifts to stories I read as a teenager. H.P. Lovecraft describing exactly what I'd seen through the thick glass in that swirling black water. How could he have known? Was this some ancient thing that demands sacrifice? What were a handful of oil rig workers when their deaths could be explained a dozen different ways? Is this what happened to Fred? I could hide. Not forever, though. There's only one way out. Today a helicopter lands to fly workers to Norway for debriefing. I'm supposed to be on it, but I volunteered to stay for the drill instead. I'm going to bet they won't expect me to run. They're confident enough that they gave another man my seat. I know I resemble two of the men leaving, both in height, weight, and coloring. For once I'm grateful to be ordinary looking, especially now that everyone's grown out their beards and hair, bulked up undercoats and hats against the cold. Blending in would be easy. The hard part would be getting one of them alone. Luck holds. I wonder if Fred is somehow steering it. One of the men have chosen bunks in the room next to mine. The clock gives me 3 hours before I'm due at the drill. Barely an hour before the helicopter leaves. I don't have a plan, but desperation carries me into his empty room, where he lies snoring, a bottle of liquor rolling back and forth across the floor with the sway of the rig. He couldn't wait for Norway to start celebrating his freedom. Dual pulls at the corner of his mouth. I consider what to do with him, then realize I don't need to do anything. As long as he makes the flight, no one will come looking for him. His roommates just started their shift. They won't be back for 5 hours. A packed duffel bag sits by his feet, a name tag on the handle. His ID hangs from a hook above his head. A rosary hangs there too. The pull of the entity brushes against the edge of my mind, and I bat it away like an insistent insect. Without thinking too hard about it, I take the rosary and shove it into my pocket. I'm not Catholic, but this feels like uncharted territory, and I'll take whatever protection I can get. The pull fades. A moment later, the rig lurches, but no sirens follows. I take his outerwear, a face mask, and a hat stitched with his name, then hide in the bathroom and wait. The wind rises again, and the sea starts hammering the rig once more. It isn't nightfall yet. The turbulence has come early. A creeping doubt settles in my chest as I sit there. Could the entity know I'm about to leave? I check the watch. Time. Luck holds one more time. The weather is miserable, enough that hunching over and pulling my hat low looks perfectly normal. The duffel bag over my shoulder helps disguise my build, close enough to the man I'm impersonating. Someone passes me and calls out, "Good luck, Kyle." I nod and give a thumbs up. He moves on and I cross the slippery platform in the small shelter where the others wait for the helicopter. Wind and rain lash the platform with real fury now. I slow my pace as the helicopter hovers, preparing to land. I have no interest in conversation with the waiting men. Chances are none of them know Kyle well anyway. They're all bundled up the same way, leaning hard into the gale, but I don't want to take any chances. Everyone's accounted for. One of the pilots shouts to the group, "You're all here. We're leaving now. No point waiting. Weather's turning ugly." Heads nod. I climb aboard and settle into a dark corner. The others pack in around me. The pilot slams the door and drops into the seat beside the second pilot. The wind shrieks. Whitecaps slam the rig with more force than I've felt since I arrived. We lift off just as the siren sounds again, floodlights sweeping the stairs and platforms below. The helicopter banks away, destroyers moving in the distance, some drawing closer to the rig. No one speaks. The noise makes it impossible anyway, and I can picture every man in this cabin silently willing the helicopter to fly faster. Eventually the lights of the debriefing center blink into view through the dark. Then other lights, red ones, flare up across the base. Something is wrong. My stomach drops at the thought that I've been discovered. We touch down, and as we climb out, a man in overall runs up to the pilot, telling him he needs to turn around immediately. Something terrible has happened at the rig. The base has no spare men or time for us. Someone shouts for us to head to the cafeteria just past the double doors and wait. Other men sprint toward different helicopters, heavily armed. The lights inside the building flicker rapidly. Something is interrupting the power. I mutter to the man beside me, "Bathroom." And he nods, following the rest towards the doors marked cafeteria. The building feels abandoned. We're clearly the least of anyone's concerns. In the bathroom, I strip off the hat, tuck the ID inside the duffel bag, wash my face, trim my beard, and comb my hair. 5 minutes of effort, and I look like an entirely different man. From there, I follow the exit signs overhead. Now and then, a soldier or someone in a lab coat passes by, and none of them seem to see me at all. I might as well be invisible. Every face carries the same worry. I find the doors leading to a loading bay. Several trucks parked and being loaded in a hurry. I don't know where they're headed, and I don't care. Anywhere is better than here. The chaos has clearly spread this far too. A few trucks still sit with their back doors open. I slip into one and crouch behind some crates. Moments later, the door slams shut and the truck lurches into motion. A few minutes later, we slow the exit gate. I hear the driver's voice low talking to the guard. "All hell's broken loose on that rig. The one that nearly went down a few days back. Whatever it is, it's bad. Yeah, I'm running supplies out to the airstrip, positioning them for delivery to the other rigs." The guard wraps the side of the truck and we pull forward. The storm that battered the rig has followed us inland, rolling over the base and the town beyond it. Lightning streaks the clouds. Thunders roll close behind. Rain drives sideways in the gusts. We enter a mid-sized town. Traffic crawling, horns blaring, headlights smeared through the rain-streaked sliver of window in the back doors. There's no camera back here, a small miracle. The driver has his music turned up loud. I make my way carefully to the doors and ease the lock open, waiting for the right moment. It comes when the truck stops with no car close behind. The driver likely assumes traffic has simply thinned out. The city lights have gone dark. I know a sensor will alert him the instant the door opens, so I move fast. We're passing a narrow gap between two buildings, an alley. My chance, and I take it. The wind hits me harder than I expect. I duck into the darkness and crouch behind a dumpster. The driver climbs out to check the door, and I can guess exactly what he's thinking. Easier to believe he simply forgot to lock it. Nothing inside looks disturbed. He drives off. Across the street, a bakery glows warm behind a neon coffee cup sign. Inside, I eat pastries and finally let myself think. Do they know my grandmother was Norwegian, that I speak the language almost like a native? Maybe. Or how long before someone realizes I never showed up for debriefing? I think of what I saw through the submarine's glass. Sooner or later they'll come looking for me, I know that much. And for once, I'm glad that I'm not married. I have no children. No one that I could worry about. But then I think about tonight. Tonight at least I'm gone, and somewhere I'll pass the storm. Something ancient is still waiting to be seen.